Hi, and welcome to the February episode of No Budget, which will be posted by the end of the month of February by whoever's editing it in the month of February. No Budget, in case you were wondering, is the show for filmmakers by filmmakers with no budget.
Awesome.
That was the first time I got that right from the, get-go.
Knocked it out of the park.
Awesome. Okay, guys, let's talk about some filmmaking crap. What do you got?
Well, I'd like to talk about safety on a film set. Mm-hmm. So what can you do to make a film set safe? What do you think for a cast and crew?
Insist on the cast and crew wearing hard hats at all times?
You could do that, yes. I just think it's so important, especially in low to no budget film sets. Like, what do you make an actor?
Because you're probably not insured.
Yeah. But how far do you push it? Like, if you're bringing someone up a mountain in the middle of the night, you have to prepare for it. You have to make sure people are warm and fed properly. And there's no point in just driving up the middle of Double Mountains at 5 a.m. some morning and just having no preparation done. You know, it's kind of dangerous in one way, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, from stuff that I've been on, I can pretty much say I don't think anyone really thought about safety when it came to, like, keeping people warm or, like, it's just like...
Okay, so it's that kind of safe. Like, I mean, obviously if you're doing
stunts,
rock climbing or something like that, it's pretty, cut and dry. You should have a professional with you. There should da-da-da-da-da. But just stuff as simple as that, you might not think of it.
Absolutely. Or if there's a scene where someone is supposed to hang off a building, how far is the director going to push the actor to, like, maybe the actor might be very keen to obviously impress or something, and it's on the actor and the producer to be able to step in that point and just say, listen.
It's probably somebody who's kind of not involved in the moment, because the director could be looking at a monitor and just going, oh yeah, a bit more. The actor's just going, a bit more, really, a bit more. You need somebody kind of outside of the whole thing to go, actually, this is crazy. But you shouldn't have somebody hanging off the side of a building in any circumstances.
Yeah. But even because the days are so long, like driving home afterwards or getting up so early,
that's a really good point.
It's so important. There's been like a documentary in RT this week, very sad documentary about people who lost their lives, on the roads. And when people in film are working 12-hour days and they're driving home, how do they, protect themselves? Yeah.
I suppose that's really up to kind of the producer to make sure that people get reasonable breaks and people are not. It's not calling it quits at 4 o'clock in the morning when people have just done 16 hours and going to see it.
But even simple stuff as well, like maybe dragging heavy equipment, or just to watch you out, because you can easily injure yourself. Again, it comes down to insurance.
That's why you have it. That's why you get that insurance for the usually the shoot or the month, or I think depending on the company.
Exactly, that's the budget gone.
It comes low budget.
Yeah.
Very low budget. But I guess that's one of those areas you probably don't want to skimp on, because if somebody gets hurt, you're FUCKED.
I would say 90%.
You like how I didn't swear on YouTube?
I mean, do you think a lot of the shorts you've been on have had insurance?
Probably not, to say the truth.
I've been on a couple.
Have you? Yeah.
None of mine ever have. But I've been on others.
Mm-hmm. So when they didn't have insurance, did you make extra sure that no one slipped or
No, I think
building?
I wouldn't. If I knew there was going to be something going on that might be a little bit dangerous, I would definitely get it. But with anything I've personally, directed or whatever, there's nothing that I would be worried about. I mean, other than walking and
like somebody tripping on a cable or something like that.
Yeah, exactly, that kind of thing. So and I am aware of that. I'm like, don't fucking step on that cable.
Or even dealing with animals. Like if you're dealing with, say, a horse, even with a low budget film, just have someone who's used to horses on the side, just in case. We had a film recently. We did a film about there was donkeys involved, but luckily there was someone who knew how to handle animals on the side, just in case.
And that film was insured.
And it was, just in case a donkey went mad or something.
Yeah.
But but at least there was someone there, because even donkeys can go a bit crazy.
Even donkeys can go crazy.
Yeah, so I guess for tips for anyone watching, I would say if you're going to be doing something that involves even some semblance of danger, get insurance to make sure you're covered, because if you're not, you're going to be screwed for life at paying that off. As an actor, don't do anything that you feel that you don't feel as you're being well protected on. And I know as an actor, like you tend, especially when you're just starting out, be a little bit more willing to do stuff that you might not be if you're more established. But don't let that, get you into a situation where you end up getting hurt and potentially, the rest of your life is affected because you just were trying to impress a, director or producer. Good tips. Good discussion.
Okay.
All right. What do you got?
I suppose my question is, where we often see stuff and we're really inspired by it. So where is the line between kind of being inspired by something and plagiarizing it? I mean, we probably see stuff and go, even framing, and go, I'm nicking that. And I think that's fine. It's like, homage, plagiarism, and inspiration. Should you look to borrow from the great directors or actors or cinematographers? I think that's how we all learn. So
I think that's fine. I mean, I think it's more of an issue from a writing perspective in a lot of sense. Like if you're stealing dialogue or lines or a story blatantly versus, a look or a style. Yeah. But because even when you're kind of mirroring some of the masters, you're still doing it because you're trying to learn how to do it, versus just blatantly copying it. Be like, oh, nobody will notice that I'm, doing this shot that so-and-so does. When I was on a shoot recently and I was doing DOP, and it was funny because I'd been watching a lot of cinematography tutorials and videos and stuff, and I kind of recognized sometimes when I was doing a shot that was similar, and I'm like, oh, this is kind of like so-and-so. And at a couple points, I did try to emulate it, but only because it seemed relevant to the shot. Yeah. Like, I didn't think to myself, like, oh, I'm going to do this whole film and look like,
Steven Spielberg, it's all just going to be a oneer.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. These long one, or Kurosawa and his wives, or, whatever. Like, it doesn't really matter. And I think it's worth recognizing that you're doing it, but not blatantly copy it. But I would say definitely more from a writing perspective, like when you're it's much more obvious.
It can be really, but it can be copying. I think your experience there is lovely because it almost says that it can be a good thing. Yeah. To see stuff and go, oh, that shot that he did there will work really beautifully here. Mm-hmm. I think that's a good process in growing. I'm sure that
absolutely.
Does that happen in acting?
About which?
That you kind of, you're in a moment and you kind of borrow from an actor that you love, or you use some kind of technique that...
Yeah, because usually you're trained in a certain way. It's maybe a method that maybe they used as well. So to access a character, you might use the same method they've done. So it is taught or borrowed. Yeah. So yeah, it was kind of similar, right? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, as long as I think the key for it is though, just don't blatantly copy, and come up with your own style.
Yeah. Unless it's like a reinterpretation, because like say Shakespeare, for instance. There've been quite a few interpretations of that, and it's some successful and some are not so successful. Like my favorite film, as I mentioned before, Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet. I mean, that was just so beautiful. Oh yeah. And that was obviously influenced by the original or retold, isn't it? Yeah. But in a very different way. So.
That's exactly it. Mm-hmm. And he's got a look to his films. Absolutely. You want to talk about copying. If somebody made a film that looked like a Baz Luhrmann film, they'd be like, yeah, way to rip that off. Like,
there's that interesting.
I definitely, he's copied from the theatre. He's influenced by maybe burlesque or cabaret or something. It's very theatrical, all his stuff. So he's definitely borrowed from somewhere,
So some directors just have such a visual style, like what's your man who does like the Grand Budapest Hotel and
Wes Anderson.
Like it's such a storybook kind of his color palette. So I mean, if you were to completely buy you've gone, if you completely mirrored that, people would kind of go,
so copy.
So there is a kind of a point at which it's great to be influenced, to take and to borrow and to kind of emulate the people you admire, but there is definitely...
But then take it and make it your own. And,
absolutely, and to have the confidence to make it your own. Because it's probably lack of confidence if you're obviously borrowing something completely. But you have to trust your instinct at creating anything. Totally. So, and
but
just go off and...
There is a crossover there that's part of the learning process. That's kind of interesting,
Mm-hmm. Great conversation, guys. Excellent. And with that, another fun and exciting, adventure-filled episode of No Budget comes to an end. Tune in next time when we will discuss something also fun and exciting.